right, so we're gonna go ahead and start. Maybe announce themselves. I'm Gwen Brown, the chair and supervisor for the 11th district.
Frederick Brookhouse, supervisor, District 16.
Aaron Decker, Supervisor, District 22.
Julia Robinson, supervisor, District 5.
Jennifer Crescent, Youth and Governance.
Oh, I'm Pam Larson, here, Extension Director.
April Webb, planning office.
Neil Carlson, positive youth development educator.
Andy Bueller, Director of Planning Development.
Eric Meadows indicated that he couldn't be here today, and Kenzie Meadows as well. So we did have a work meeting yesterday where staff presented the items on the agenda and we were able to discuss them. So Andy, would you tell us about the notice in the paper?
Yes, and so we have up on the screen the affidavit of publication, which is a Class 2 notice in the Kenosha News for 2 postings, one on November 26th and one on December 5th. Yeah, with that, we can move to item number 1, which I'll read into the record and then we'll ask for it to be tabled. So we have Brent M. and Megan K. and Deanna L. Zerbo, 216, 266th Avenue, Burlington, Wisconsin, 53105 owner. Brent Zerbo, 5216, 266th Avenue, Burlington, Wisconsin, 53105 agent. Request an amendment to the adopted land use plan for Kenosha County, 2035, map 65, the comprehensive plan from rural density residential to industrial on tax parcel number 304-220-312-0460, located in the town of Brighton. So this item was tabled at the town level, and so we would recommend that it be tabled here until it can get worked through the town level, and when that does, then we can bring it back to the committee.
Motion to table.
Second. We have a motion to table and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Okay, thank you for that. Then next item is a resolution to request the approval and the appointment of Andy Bueller, myself, to serve the Southeastern Wisconsin Fox River Commission. I've been on the commission since the Kenosha County became a member. And I think I end up having a unique situation that besides working in our office, I actually live in the county. And those are 2 of the requirements that you need to have to be on the committee. Not that you have to be in planning and development, but you have to be in the county and also live in the county. So
Entertain a motion to, is that what I'm looking for? Yeah.
Yes.
To approve. Second. Okay, we have a motion from Supervisor Robinson, a second from Supervisor Decker. Any discussion? Aye. Governance, all right, thank you. All others in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Congratulations.
thank you so much. And I'll just give a brief thing for this. So the Fox River Commission is actually commissioned by the state of Wisconsin. They do get funding through the legislature. It's $200,000 a year. And so Waukesha, Racine, and Kenosha are members for the Fox River and basically work with trying to improve the Fox River from a standpoint of erosion and sedimentation and anything else that's going into it. And we work with SWRPAC also in doing a number of different studies and trying to give grants or small loans to farmers to do improvements to their farming practices with drainage, or it could be doing improvements to the shoreline of homeowners that live on the property to try to eliminate the erosion. I know that there's a lot of concern with Burlington and the sediment from the dam. There is concerns with what's this next community up? Josh Blank.
Rockford.
Big Bend,
Just north of Burlington.
Rochester,
They have a lake there. and-
Waterford,
What was that?
Waterford.
Yeah. Thank you. Waterford, and so they have some problems up there with a lot of sedimentation and trying to work to get that fixed. So that's what the commission does. We meet every other month to work on trying to do projects and trying to keep the Fox River from, actually trying to make it better. So With that, then we have the tabled item, which, we'd like to remove from the table, then I'll read into the record.
Motion to the table.
Any discussion? Aye. Any governance, everyone else?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries unanimously.
All right, great. So then we have the request of J&S Real Estate Company LLC, 1045 Geneva National Avenue, North Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, 52147 owner, Peter Murphy, One Energy Renewables, 10 North Livingston Street, Suite 201, Madison, Wisconsin, 53703 agent, requesting a conditional use permit to allow the construction of a solar farm in the A1 Agricultural Preservation District on tax parcel number 454-221-334-0400, located in the town of Paris. So this item was brought before the committee last month. The town was here and they provided a number of concerns that came up since it went through their town. And even though it did get approved through their town, and they sent us a number of conditions which we incorporated within the county conditional use permit that you have before you. And so over the last month, we worked with Corp Council on their concerns, and we looked at making modifications to the conditional use permit. And I think in the end, it really was not changing it, except maybe just enhancing it. And then for those at the work session, we went through all that. I can bring up a red line version if we need to go through that at all. I know Peter's been given a copy and you certainly can provide comment, but I just wanted to kind of give background on where we're at with that before you. So we do have a conditional use permit that seems to address everything from the town. We did send that to the town. We did not hear back from them. And so here we are. I guess if you want to hear a comment from
Yep,
Peter.
please.
Yeah,
Go
then
ahead.
you can, since you have that, you can comment on the changes that were made.
Sure. Well, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you about this again. I'm Peter Murphy. That's me listed up there. This is my colleague, Nolan Stump. So we're comfortable with all the conditions. We had one slight change that we would like to request. On page 7 of 12, under item T regarding decommissioning. The only thing that we understand I'll let Andy get to it. We understand though the desire and the rationale behind having a security and don't take issue with the notion of having a security for decommissioning. But the timing on it under number 2, prior to the issuance of a zoning permit. So we would need to have our removal security in place in the spring, well in advance of commence construction. And so it's onerous on us. It would be $255,000 or so that we would have to set aside before commencing construction. And so our request is just that we issue that security upon energization of the project rather than prior to issuance of the zoning permit.
I can provide any comment on that. I had discussions with Corp Council.
Yeah, please.
So-
Before you, anything
Yeah.
else? Anything else you wanted to say?
That's our only issue. We've looked at this quite a bit over the last few months. We started this permit process back in July, so.
Yeah, so we had conversations on this. Peter did let us know his concerns and talked with Corp Council today, John Moyer. And I mean, this is not different than what we do like with gravel pits and things. So there are situations even with this that the operations, once the permits is issued, it means now they can start. So once they start on whatever they get going on with the solar, or if it's like non-metallic, because those are the two that mainly we have these financial assurance, then something could happen. I mean, a company could go bankrupt, something could go wrong, things couldn't get delivered, things get changed hand and never even happens, and something's partially constructed. So the financial assurance is in place to be able to take that from, day one once something gets going. And so Corp Council did not feel comfortable with changing that. And we talked and said, well, certainly it can be presented and the committee can do what you want with that, but that was the comments that we had with Corp Counsel.
I understand that completely. I mean, I can think of, and this is not related, but still along the same lines, when we had developments go bankrupt, we had houses half built and just left there and holes dug in the ground, and they were just left there and abandoned, and nothing got done with them because they were, the company went bankrupt halfway through. So I understand that completely.
If I could elaborate on the way our financing works, it might ease some concerns there. So we get a construction loan to commence construction. It essentially guarantees the construction of the project. But in order for us to get that construction loan, we have to have commercial certainty that we have a buyer for the project. So that essentially bridges. So the construction loan ensures that the project will get constructed and won't be abandoned, because there's also the surety that, or the assurance that the project will get purchased once it is constructed. So all of those things being in line, there wouldn't be a case where, in the case of like residential home construction where it's sort of prospective or speculative, this is not. I hope that, I don't know if that eases your concerns, but it is different in that sense.
The only thing that I think about with that is that there's no assurance tying to the county on that. It's all private between you and customers or
Mhm.
purchaser. So, I mean, on the residential side of it, there's a developer's agreement. And before the projects get started, say there's a piece of land that's gonna be developed into a subdivision.
Mm.
It's gonna eventually be community roads and things like that. Well, if the developer does go bankrupt halfway through for some reason or another, or that agreement isn't fulfilled, then those roads can sit unfinished.
Mhm.
So the assurance is that, is to get that, as part of the developer's agreement, that there's a bond, or not a bond, but a financial surety that's tied to normally a letter of credit.
Mhm.
So to me, that's on a developer's agreement. There's a letter of credit that's tied to the developer's agreement. So I feel like that's the similar thing that's happening here. Is that what we're asking for?
It is correct.
But it's not even for this letter of credit on a developer's agreement is much more than what this would be. I mean, if you're talking $250,000 for a letter of credit, that's usually not a big issue for larger developers.
We're not a large developer. Yeah.
Maybe Peter, how did it work within Wheatland?
It was not required. We had a road, there's a road, a letter of credit for the road agreement, vegetation, but not for the construction of the project. If it's,
We didn't require that in our conditional use permit for Wheatland?
It's the same conditional use.
That was-
process. I'm not sure what happened with that.
yeah, it's different than the Silver Lake project.
Okay.
So that's why it was flagged for us. Basically, we saw it and we were like, why is this different?
Okay. Well, I could see why you would have that feeling, which I'll have to check into, because we'll need to make sure that that's dealt with. But I think the rationale is, as Carrie indicated, I mean, that's how it works with everything that we end up doing with the construction. We do know situations where some things weren't handled by some communities when the development went belly up. But otherwise, in most situations, all the communities, as well as us, we do, you can do bonds, letter of credits. I mean, we do this for farm when, marked with conservation, when they're doing, grass waterways and things like that, they have to put up, financial assurance to make sure that it can be accomplished. It's always done in advance.
Just to correct the record, what I said about it not being required was inaccurate, but the difference between salvage value, it was net of salvage value. So on the third-party engineers decommissioning cost analysis, the salvage value was much higher than the cost of removal. And so because it was net of salvage value, that's why there was no.
Correct,
there
that was in, at the beginning, and that will change over time for that.
Right.
It's going like this.
Right, so that's the reason that it was different for the Wheatland project.
Okay, that would make sense. So that, the letter of credit will end up coming in play in time, and it has to be reviewed every 5 years, just like this one.
Can you explain you mentioned $250,000. Is this an additional expense for you?
That's the cost of removal from the decommissioning cost analysis that we submitted with our permit application, which is a requirement per the statute, per the ordinance, I should say. So that it's that number and change was the cost of removal. So that's why I'm citing that number. So we would have to set that aside.
So is it an additional cost for you?
Yes,
Is it an additional cost or is it just an earlier cost?
Right.
Right? I mean, wouldn't you have to set it aside after you did this anyway? So really, we're just
No.
asking you to set it aside earlier.
no, because upon energization, again, that commercial certainty that we need to secure the construction loan, upon energization, the asset gets transferred. Ideally, the goal is, step one is to get the conditional use permit, but once we have an agreement with the incumbent utility, they would take ownership of the project.
Maybe you can explain on that, because then when it becomes a utility owned, how the utility works with making sure that they have the funds for decommissioning.
Yeah, so decommissioning costs of all generation assets on investor-owned utilities are required to be set aside on the books. So you can see there's a line item for asset retirement for the annual reports of We Energies, WPS, Excel, MG&E, all the investor-owned utilities, because they're regulated by the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin, and so they have to do that. All of their generation, not just solar projects, but all their coal, natural gas, whatever, the hydro, whatever biomass, whatever they're using to produce power, they have to set aside decommissioning costs. So it's in their annual reports. It's
So, excuse me.
Mhm.
So are you saying that it just moved, this 250,000 is moved to an early? I'm trying to understand this $250,000.
Mhm.
Is it moved to an earlier place as we just asked, or is it?
we would incur it. We would have to be responsible for it, rather than upon energization, it being the responsibility of the long-term owner of the project.
So in a sense, on the Wheatland one, because of the salvage value that added in, there was really no cost, because that was equal to the cost of the salvage value of the decommissioning.
Yeah, this salvage
But then
value is
it's
like
being
10 times.
It's being sold to the public utility, of which then they assume that and have to have that on their books.
Mhm.
So your company never ends up needing to put up the letter of credit, in a sense. Is that kind of correct?
Ideally, right, yeah.
We asked to take out the salvage
I was
value.
just
And
gonna
that's-
ask, why did we take that out?
That was a concern from the town. And so, I mean, you can see where it's crossed out, right?
Yeah.
We added other language in there that.
Yeah, that was-
Just enhancing it, but that was the main difference on.
Yeah.
What was their concern? Because what correct me if I'm wrong, the salvage value of everything sitting on the property, all the metal and everything, is worth $250,000. So because that's worth it, that covers the line of credit. Is that correct?
It's worth
And that's
several
how-
million.
That's, right, but it's worth at least
Yeah,
the line of credit. And so that covered that, so you guys didn't have to have a line of credit. Now we're removing that salvage value, so you have to have a line of credit,
Yeah, that-
even though millions of dollars worth of stuff is on the property.
correct. If the plan commission isn't comfortable, altering this and changing the timing to upon energization as I'm requesting, I guess I would just ask that it be phased, maybe 25% at the zoning, prior to the zoning permit, and then phased in as we reach milestones, like mechanical completion or substantial completion, do the rest.
So one aspect from the town was that they felt a concern that over time, that the salvage value could go way, way down and then and who would be able to determine what that was in a viable way. And so they had a concern that was entering into the equation.
So the way it was written was the salvage value holds that, takes the place of the bond or letter of credit the entire term of the project after energization also.
Right, and also over time,
So-
as the salvage value, goes down. So then at some point, because it has to be reviewed every 5 years, the letter of credit would need to be in, but their business model, not that you couldn't end up hanging on to it, but your business model is to sell it to a public utility, so if this gets handed off, and then they assume that in the PSC requirements, Public Service Commission requirements.
Can we have the wording in there? And I hate to do this on the fly. Can we have the wording in there where it's the salvage value until it's energized? And then it switches to needing a bond or letter of credit? Because at that point, when it's energized, the utility should be owning it.
Correct.
Okay, so,
Could that be done?
yes, we can do that.
And is that,
That's essentially what I suggested.
because that
via email earlier.
takes care of the town's concern, because they're not necessarily concerned right away. It's over time that they're concerned the value of the salvage.
Right.
Well, if we require a letter of credit upon energization, plus the salvage value before it's energized, then it should be covered the way they like it and the way the town likes it after it's energized.
So could we just change this part here, remove that and say upon energization?
No, so we're saying that we want something at the
Well,
beginning, but not, unless you're adding more to it. Unless you're adding
To it, like,
energization,
prior to,
and then you remove.
and then prior to
strikeout.
energization.
Back in.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, so let's just add this back in first.
Like, yes, that.
Can't do it here. I need to bring up the Word document.
Hold, please.
We love doing this on the fly, especially when it's like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Just that one time. Yeah.
Anytime soon. I appreciate your consideration of this.
So I have a question. Good, Andy. So on the Silver Lake Solar Farm, has the public utility provided us the financial instrument?
I mean, it was handed over.
It will be in their annual report.
Yeah.
When it gets published in 25 in April. That's when their annual report comes out. So you'll be able to see, that line item. I don't know where else where it's broken out. But I provided this year's annual report to Andy earlier when I was trying to elucidate this.
So they didn't actually hand the county a letter of credit. It's once we see their annual report and the line items in their annual report, there will be a line item for that specific, that matches the amount of a line of credit.
Their asset retirement is regulated, is regulated by the state.
Mhm.
So this is something that they have to set aside per state regulation. Rather than, I mean, I'm sure if there's like a mandate to report, in the conditional use permit, should it be transferred to a public utility? I'm sure you could write something in there to guarantee that, but
That's what I was gonna say. It was like, there's nothing in here that says that you're selling it to a public utility. So how do we know that that's,
it should read, in the event the project is not owned by a public utility regulated by the Public Service Commission, a decommissioning bond or letter of credit shall be maintained by the project owner to the benefit of the county in an amount equal to the decommissioning cost as determined by a qualified engineer approved by the county zoning administrator. Such security shall be put in place within 30 days of energization. So the default should be written in there that basically, if the project isn't owned by a public utility, then whoever does own it provides the security.
were you reading from a statement you generated, or is it in?
Yeah, I sent it to Andy earlier.
Yeah, I'll pull it up. You know,
Sorry to do this to Andy.
So, and just so you know where where my perspective is coming from, is that during the downturn in the economy a number of years ago, there were a number of developers agreement or developers that defaulted, and through a series of acquisitions and selling, the letters of credit and the financial instruments never got extended.
Mhm.
And as a result of that, the local community that I was part of was responsible for large sums of money to finish the development or to clean up the mess.
Yeah,
So
I
I
understand
want to be
that.
very careful about doing this because, you know, through a series of acquisitions and transfers, that seems like the county is not aware of any of that stuff because it's all handled
Private.
Yeah,
without us. So the only way that we have a mechanism, the first touch point and the main touch point that we have is a zoning permit.
right.
Once that's issued, it's kind of like, hey, what
Yeah.
authority do we have beyond that?
Yeah, I understand the concern. That's why I preface this all by saying, look, we don't take issue with having security in general, but mostly it's the timing. And if it needs to happen, if it could be phased in such a way that we're not carrying the entire decommissioning cost from, you know, presumably like February or March is probably when we'll end up getting the zoning permit, throughout until, you know, we're finished with construction probably in September or October. It would just be less onerous on us, but it's, you know, it's a request. It's not, I'm not, you know, stomping my feet about it.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just trying to think from the county's perspective, what authority do we have that to be like, well, hey, you guys are supposed to provide this, and somebody says,
Well, if they
no,
don't
we don't.
provide it, we can pull the CUP if it's written in the CUP, correct, Andy?
correct. The CUP could be revoked. We
Yeah.
would go through that process.
Right.
Can we
That's
put
not
something
right.
in, yeah, that would be a mess. Could we
Well,
put something in that
Mostly we
would,
want them to do what was in there.
Well, I understand, and I don't think anything's, I'm not saying that anything's gonna happen, but it's just, if we're gonna do it this way for this one, I don't want somebody coming back and saying, well, you did it for them, but not for us, or because of different circumstances. So I think it's good that to differentiate between a public utility and not public utility, because I think that is different, even though I don't fully understand everything about public utilities. So,
One suggestion in potentially making it easier, and not that it's not maybe perfect, but the language that we had previously, which is kind of what we were looking at. I just put it back in, and then, and so this is with what it
Can you
says.
zoom in a little bit,
we've got old eyes.
just a little bit. There we go, thank you.
So this would be the same language except what was in green, which was added, which I don't think, changed with it. And the reason I bring that up is, this is the language we used originally,
Mhm.
was approved for the Wheatland project.
So can we add language where if it goes to a public utility, it gets sold to a public utility, then we need a bond or letter of credit or whatever?
If it is not sold to a public utility.
because that's already in the PSC. But I thought you did already include in here something about the transfer. They're still required to follow what we said.
Right.
Yeah, so we're.
So that's,
Right.
In here.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, that's later. in
but the town
yeah.
wants it, so there's a bond, not based on the salvage value, correct?
That was their concern.
Okay. So if we change it to, once it's energized, they have to have a bond or letter of credit, not, not based on the value of the salvage. That they just have to have like a bond or letter of credit, just after it's energized.
So then it would be, I think, similar to with what Peter was saying in that language, but we would also want to add a couple of these other requirements here.
Right.
Leave all that.
Yeah.
Let's keep it here.
That last whole sentence, last couple sentences should definitely.
Yeah, I think it would maybe just be the change, this part gets changed with,
No, I would
No, I
leave
think-
that,
Leave it all.
but add upon, between,
Don't tell
after that sentence before the cause of this determination. So.
Right in there,
Yep,
yep.
say like upon energization.
Energization.
And this is to
Energizing.
so Paris, to alleviate their concerns. That like that we need a bond and letter of credit in the amount was worded before.
If, yeah, this is where in the event the project is not owned by a public utility regulated by the Public Service Commission, a decommissioning bond or letter of credit shall be maintained by the project owner to the benefit of the county.
Can you copy and paste that other sentence just to put it there so that we
So you
can
can
read
see
it?
it.
Oh, the one that he wrote.
Here.
Or in his other.
It says okay, so prior to
It's already there. It's already there.
shall post a commercially reasonable financial assurance bond. Right, okay, in the amount of the estimated cost of decommissioning the solar farm as determined by a qualified engineer.
just right here.
Right, we've got that in the first part.
Right.
And that's there. So, but between here and here, in there is where we want to add that sentence about in the event that the project is not owned by a public utility, then you are adding a different bond, for
Yeah, here, it's-
see it.
But see that, the first sentence is not the same as
Okay,
written.
so that's the language that Peter.
No, it's not, because they.
Okay,
he added
we just
the part
changed
about
it.
salvage. This does not.
That's
talk
right,
about
that's
salvage.
salvage, right.
Yeah, so the language I'm using solves the problem because it's not, it doesn't take into account the salvage value.
Yeah, so that's, I guess I was thinking is that
Okay.
this whole
Or,
sentence could fit in right here. This would be removed. This part would be removed with this here. We wouldn't have that, and then the rest of this stays. Does that seem to obtain that desired?
I think we need both pieces.
Both pieces.
Yeah,
Because that's almost a before and an after.
Right.
If you take away that first part, you're eliminating the concern of the building time.
okay, so then,
So right where you have upon energization, if you added that last sentence.
Or just take that in the event the project and replace upon energization with that sentence.
On energization, if the project,
In the event.
in the event that the project is not owned.
Yeah, so that's,
The
I would leave
amendment.
upon energization and then just add in the event.
That's what we're saying.
yeah, because I mean, right here is such security shall be in place for 30 days of annexation.
So it's a little redundant, but we're wordsmithing.
So we don't need the upon energization because that's at the end of the sentence.
Right.
So just take that bottom part,
Really, we're putting that sentence in here.
delete that, yes, and then
Kind of
put
makes
that.
it seem like there's
So
two.
then, if we do that, how does the first
You know.
sentence play with the second sentence? Because I
Yeah,
understand.
it's kind of making it
Second
seem
one,
like there's two.
it sounds like before there's a zoning permit, they need to put up the bond.
Unless salvage value.
Right.
salvage value is higher.
Right.
Bond,
Right.
it sounds like.
So at this
most
point,
cases,
salvage
salvage
would be
would be-
higher, so then, and then you basically have until energization, at which point, if it's sold to a public utility, then it is not, yeah, basically that bond comes back, and because it then goes to the public utility.
Right.
And the public utility needs to be taking care of it. My question is, can we, I like what we've just done here, on the fly, but can we put something in here that makes sure that, as Aaron said, we do not have sales that are going on without the county getting that bond or letter of credit? You know, I don't want to hear that, you know, they sold it to this person, and right now we're hearing it's gonna be a public utility, but what if it's a private entity that comes in, and then they sell it to somebody else, and they sell it to somebody else, and third person down the line, the county doesn't get it. So how can we put it into the CUP that we get this, not just every 5 years, but every 5 years or upon
Wait,
sale
before you
of?
go on, you were gonna say something, how we're making it sound like it's too.
Well, I think the way she explained it makes sense.
All right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. So, you know, if we did it with the every 5 years, I would like to say every 5 years or upon sale of the,
And,
and
This is where this was changed a little bit to be a little stronger with the sale. So it's a little more clear that all the conditions of this conditional use permit would apply to any
Yes.
future owner. So anything that was said in the previous period we were talking about would apply to any owner.
but to Julia's point, if you sell it 2 years down the road, that owner has 3 years to provide anything again, because it's only every 5 years. So when we talk about the 5 years.
Unless there's already something on the books, they would have to match that.
But
I know, but
we're
it,
talking about, we want proof that they matched it.
yeah.
I want
so
They have,
the 5
they have,
years.
that's to give the county some sort of,
letter of credit.
right, they actually have to give them a copy of it.
I mean,
That's
so,
what you're talking about.
yeah, exactly. So it's not, I mean, 11 is great, and I'm glad that we've got it in there. But I just think that when we talk about every 5 years, if we say every 5 years and or upon
Upon sale.
sale, then at that point, it's just
Yeah, then we're
there,
covered.
it's there for
On
everybody.
transfer of ownership.
Yeah,
Yeah.
upon transfer of ownership. That sounds better. Good job.
You all are hired.
Delete the quotes after the green.
Yeah, and I mean, we can clean this up as long as the language is correct. That can fix the,
You wanna reread it to make sure it's correct, you know,
the number 2.
yeah.
Yeah, so basically, prior to the issuance of a zoning permit, the solar farm owner shall post a commercially reasonable financial assurance bond or letter of credit in the amount of the difference between the reasonably estimated cost of decommissioning the solar farm and the reasonably estimated salvage value of the solar farm improvements as determined by a qualified engineer. In the event the project is not owned by a public utility regulated by the Public Service Commission, a decommissioning bond of letter of credit shall be maintained by the project owner to the benefit of the county in the amount equal to the decommissioning cost as determined by a qualified engineer approved by the county zoning administrator. Such security shall be put in place within 30 days of energization. The costs of this determination are to be paid by the solar farm owner. The need for the amount of the financial assurance shall be reviewed by a qualified engineer, approved by the county planning and development, renewed for continuous coverage, and updated for adequacy of coverage every 5 years or upon transfer of ownership. In the absence of required financial assurance operations shall cease.
And take out and, I think, or is,
And shall.
I'd say and upon transfer of ownership, so that would make it more frequent, right? If it was or upon transfer of ownership, then
right,
it's been 5 years, but it hasn't transferred ownership to
Right.
be claimed. Yeah. This is better, more beneficial to the county.
One thing to test, so first of all, the pop books are a little different in that they. But,
Yeah.
not the area.
is a bit of a test, you know, as you're thinking about it in your head, it's like, okay, you read the first sentence and you're like, okay, it's fine. in all likelihood, based on what you're telling us, because the salvage value is always going to eclipse the decommissioning value, but again, it's going to be determined by a qualified engineer. Presumably on these, you're never gonna,
In the first 5 years, it is, we have that information now, and then that document expires essentially after 5 years.
so we're gonna leave the language in there, but essentially it's in there for really not any particular purpose because of the financial value of these solar farms early on.
We don't want it to be-
Right.
It goes like this,
But-
right?
So then, in the event the project is not owned by a public utility regulated by a public service commission, which it is for the first, during the construction period, it's not owned by a public service commission, so that would say that, okay, that applies now because it's not owned by a public utility.
Mhm.
But then at the end, the last sentence, there's a period, then it says such security shall be put in place within 30 days of energization. So
Ah.
it basically delays it.
Yes.
So it basically says, okay, if the salvage value is greater than the decommissioning value, you don't need to provide the bond or letter of credit. If it's owned by a public entity and not or by a private entity and not a public entity, you need to do it regardless of the salvage value.
Mhm.
But you don't need to do it until after 30 days after energization.
Yes,
Is that
that's,
Yes.
the steps that we think that the language represents? Perfect.
Fine, it's too big. In the green.
That's the same reason, so they got 14 instead of 12.
Say that. Like I said, it's more important for the language than it is for how pretty it looks.
Want to be consistent.
But, because we'll fix this and then I'll accept all the
Right.
changes, so.
Right.
Yeah,
thank you all, appreciate the effort and focus on that.
And the town of Paris should still be happy with that. Right?
I don't know why they wouldn't be,
Okay,
I mean, based upon their comments.
okay.
Okay, is there anyone wishing to speak for the petition? Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak against it? Anyone wishing to speak against it? Okay, so entertaining the motion to,
From the town.
And I'll just
oh,
indicate
yes, the town.
Yeah.
Have heard.
that, the town did approve it. It was unanimous. And it doesn't seem like I have it right here, but we know that they were here, they talked to us last month.
Motion to approve the conditional use permit with the conditions as stated.
Second. Any further discussion? Oh, others?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you all.
To be.
With that, we can move to item number 5. So this is, our first meeting with a change in how we're working the order of things. And this is the feature program, overview of the Extension Commercial County Youth Civic Engagement and Post-Secondary Pathway Program. And I'll turn everything over from here to Pam.
Well, actually, I'm going to turn it right over to Camille because
Okay.
she is our featured presenter today, along with her guests, who she will introduce you to. And I will move so that they can join me. Andy, you'll probably have to let them go there.
Oh, so take care, guys.
Thank you all, appreciate it, yeah, very nice, let's have a good.
Stuff, Sharon. We'll just-
The ones that in between.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. As you know, I'm Camille Carlson. I'm the Positive Youth Development Educator for Kenosha County. I just wrapped up my 10th month of service and it's been really great so far. And I just want to extend a sincere thank you to all of you and also to everyone I've been working with so far. Just sharing more about Kenosha County and referring me to other people to work with. And yeah, it's been a great opportunity. Just to share a little bit more about me, I'm originally from Illinois. I grew up in a very small rural area, and then I came up to Milwaukee to do my schooling, and now I'm here today. Yes, and I will share a little bit more about the youth civic engagement and post-secondary pathways programming I've been working on, especially these last few months. And then we'll start with Youth as Resources, and I would like to turn it over to Alexis to introduce herself.
Hi, my name's Alexis Davis. I come from Westosha Central High School. I'm a junior, and I've been on your board since 2023, and I'm part of the media committee.
Yeah, just to share a little bit more about what Youth as Resources is, it's a youth adult board. There's 9 youth members and 3 adult board members. And they meet monthly to distribute grants to different youth-led service projects in Kenosha. It's a partnership between Extension Kenosha County and United Way of Kenosha County. So Extension is the programming party. So I run the monthly meetings, help support the youth in achieving their goals, and yeah, just supporting the functioning of the board. And then United Way is the fiscal agent, and they raise $5,000 each year to allow the YAR board to distribute grants.
So YAR has 3 main components. We do committee work where we branch off into 3 different committees: membership, media, and endowment. And then in these committees, we work on outreaching to the community and really trying to get more involvement in YAR. And we also do grant giving, as Camille mentioned, where we have community members present to us their youth-led community projects. And then we give them the grant money based on how we vote. And then the last component is service projects. So we try to get involved in the community work that we are funding and just kind of see what it's all about.
Yeah, so there's 4 committees and they each have specific work to do. And yeah, each youth is assigned to a committee. Some 23-24 YAR highlights. I included the annual report for y'all for your review, but I just wanted to highlight that we recruited 3 new youth members and 1 adult member. There was a vacancy for the whole 23-24 year. There's 2 vacancies, so it's great to end on a strong note and have a full board for this current year.
We did 1 fall service project during the 2023 year where we volunteered at the United Way Trilogy. We did code checking, but recently we've been working on branching out to the community a little more and kind of see what we're helping fund. So we recently did a community tree lighting, and we handed out hot chocolate and coloring books for that. And then we also awarded 7 grants over the year for a total of $3,500. They were all 500 full grants, and we funded projects such as public libraries, the Shalom Center, and pathways for accessibility. We also awarded the Patricia and Leonard Johnson Award to the Prairie Lane Giving Garden Project. It was a bunch of 3rd graders who wanted to start a garden so they could give the garden produce to the food pantries. Oh yeah, the book's over there. We'll be passing around the project book that they sent us. But they really showed leadership in the community and citizenship because these 3rd graders were taking initiative in their education. They were really passionate about it too. They made little soaps to like show what they did with it, and it was really nice.
Yeah, I also am sharing another project book that was just turned in. It was also funded during the 23-24 grant year, but it was just completed at the end of November. So he did little free pantries at the Kenosha Public Libraries, and that's the 2nd booklet. Yeah, and I just wanted to Also highlight some cool things we're doing this year, in YAR. We updated the handbook over the summer, so we really focused on, improving attendance. It was a little bit of a weakness this last year. So we included language on quorum as it was missing from the handbook prior to this. And also just reviewing board member responsibilities and expectations, just to ensure that the board is carrying out its mission. Another great thing is like the committee work has also started off strong. So here is a youth Owen at the county fair doing promotion on the grant outreach. This was back in August. And we also are having some professional development opportunities, like a guest speaker from the Shalom Center came to speak about the community needs in Kenosha County. So here's Wendy Cross. She thankfully came to share a little bit more and spoke to the YAR board at our November meeting.
Just in general, for me, I've like volunteered a lot through clubs like NHS, and YAR has just really helped me understand the other side of things, how volunteers try to get funding for their organizations. And it's just been really helpful to see the whole process behind them.
Yeah, so that's all we wanted to share about YAR at this time. If you have any questions for Alexis, I invite you to ask now. She might have to step out by the end of the meeting. So is there any questions for Alexis?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very well spoken.
Thank you.
Yes, so now I would like to share a little bit more about the community conversation that just took place in September, at the end of September. And its focus was on disability inclusion, and it included both youth from Kenosha and Racine counties. Yeah, so the highlights of that experience. So the community conversation is based on the World Cafe style model of conversation. If you're familiar with it, it's essentially like round tables, and you invite people from the community to speak about a particular issue. So the youth organized around disability inclusion and accessibility in our 2 counties. It was a total of 9 youth. A couple of them didn't want to be pictured, which is their choice. So it was both able-bodied youth and youth who had disabilities. So we also extended the opportunity to both high schoolers and middle schoolers. So it was really, it was a cool experience. And as you can see, they met in September and compiled their notes and made a report. And I shared that with you. They met over the summer, over the course of like 5 planning sessions. Education included background on like what disability is and why disability inclusion and access is important for our communities. And yeah, we just wanted to work from a common starting point, as not all youth had experience with disability or had experience in different ways. This was, yeah, also a unique opportunity because it was a paid opportunity. So for each planning session that the youth came to, they were compensated for their time and work. Yeah, and amongst these youth, some of them were very eager to stay engaged. So we took them to the Youth as Partners in Civic Leadership Conference. It's an annual conference for youth across Wisconsin. And yeah, this was just a great opportunity for youth leaders to meet other youth leaders across the state. So it's organized around groups. So groups are invited to come. It's not like an individual leader type of thing. The purpose is to have the youth kind of like brainstorm and walk away with action plans to take back to their community. So they can participate in workshops or even lead workshops. So our youth actually led a workshop on disability inclusion, and it was very well attended actually. So that was really great to see. Three of our youth led that workshop with, co-led it with our other educator who was there from Racine County. But yeah, I had a great time. It would be really great to bring some youth from our legacy programs like Yig and Yar next year. So I would like to look into how to support funding for that as well. But yeah, some other highlights of the YPCL conference is, yeah, so these are youth from both Kenosha and Racine presenting on their action plans, what they want to do in our community. Following the community conversation, but yeah, some highlights is that there was like a guest speaker on Friday night that talked about like the housing affordability policies she's working on at the state level. So it was also a great chance for them to hear about state level policies and local policies that differ from across the state, and just to meet other youth leaders. I also organized a campus visit to Marquette University with 27 youth from Kenosha. And I also partnered with Racine County on this, and they brought 6 youth from Burlington. But yeah, we got to learn about different campus resources such as the Career Counseling Center and Academic Student Resource Center. So it goes just beyond like going to college and like having lunch there. It's also about making sure students know how to access resources once they get to college, and learning about different skills to succeed in college, like time management and resume development and going to tutoring. So it was a great presentation from these 2 campus centers. They also just learned about the admissions process and participated in a campus tour. Yeah, but my role as a youth development educator is to help young people prepare themselves for adulthood and navigate different career pathways and things that they might be have skills for, interest in. And yeah, part of this is dreaming, but the other part is practical support. So college is just one pathway they could explore, and I look forward to continuing doing this work in the near future. But yeah, here's some more photos of the youth. This was just the group I was with. There was a couple other chaperones with the other groups of youth. Yeah, so now I'll turn it over to the youth and governance members who joined as guest speakers to introduce themselves.
Okay. Hi, my name is Harsha Seetham Raju. I was originally a part of the executive committee, but then I switched over to the human services committee, something we'll talk about in a bit. I go to Harborside Academy and I'm a senior, and one of my favorite YIG experiences so far was our bus tour, especially touring some of the cool law enforcement buildings. I thought that was really neat, and that was one of my highlights. So
I'm John Klinke. I'm a part of the legislative committee. This is my first year part of YIG, and I'm a junior at Westosha Central. My favorite memory of YIG so far is meeting Supervisor Morrissey. I learned that he used to be my dad's boss, and so that was kind of a funny thing to talk with him about, and he brings it up almost every time I see him.
Hi, my name is Claire Cook. I'm a senior at Indian Trail High School. I'm on the legislative committee, and I've really enjoyed getting to meet some people that I wouldn't normally meet. So this summer I spent some time shadowing at the courthouse with Judge Gagliardi and the clerk of the courts. So I found those to be enjoyable experiences that I got through YIG.
Yeah, so I'm sure you all are familiar with youth and governance, but it's where 2 youth serve on each committee. And some highlights of the 23-24 year is that we retained all 18 members of the youth committee, so they all were able to be recognized at the celebration ceremony for their service. Also included is I had a feedback session where 2 youth showed up back in April and just offered some feedback on their YIG experience. At that point, I had only 2 full months on the job, so it was great to hear directly about their experiences and see how I could improve for this upcoming cohort. So yeah, I included the YIG annual report as well, so you'll see the nomination data from the year prior. So that took place in the spring of 23, so a full year beforehand. But yeah, I will also say that the feedback included in the YIG annual report really emphasized like leadership competence, ability to speak with adults and increased knowledge on local government. And they also just appreciated opportunities for their voice to be heard. Yes. So following the feedback session and following the YIG orientation, it was shared that the executive committee might not have enough agenda items, so would need to be removed for this upcoming year, which is a discussion point for tonight. So I figured while I was updating the handbook, it would be a great opportunity to invite the youth to join and just really get their input on how to strengthen the YIG experience and just make it more clear, especially coming into the program, because they had a lot of questions on just the basic structure of it, expectations, and all of that. So yeah, before I proceed though, I want to backtrack really quick and just say some highlights from this year are partnering on co-county skills building meetings. So I've worked with the Racine County educator to have opportunities for Kenosha and Racine youth to meet each other and share experiences from county to county, but also just to develop their skills. So we did government terminology and Robert's Rules of Order for one, and then unfortunately the second meeting was not attended at all. So, but the first meeting was successful. We had 7 youth from Kenosha attend. But yeah, back to the handbook project. It came out of the need to review from 8 committees to 7. First, I would just like to recognize all the youth who participated. We had 12 out of 16 youth participate, which I thought was really great. But yeah, best practices involving youth as decision makers and co-creators. But yeah, my goals of the handbook review project were to have the youth decide the meeting structure. So I had a couple ideas and I proposed it to them, but it really evolved out of their feedback. I also wanted to extend a professional development opportunity to them to present in front of PDEC. And I also just wanted to hear their reflections on YIG experiences so far, back to just seeing how it could be more clear upon entering the program. My 2 major points I want to touch on is that the youth really wanted more in-person connection points, even outside of the program YIG. So they, as part of the meeting structures, they asked for once a month casual meetup. So just to either talk about like some of their ideas for YIG, what they've been experiencing YIG, or just to get to know each other on a more personal level outside of their committee experiences. So that was really surprising to hear, and I was happy to help support that this past fall. And then I was also surprised to hear about their creative approaches to outreach. So they were aware that we had low applications this past year, and they've suggested a lot of helpful things for me to do outreach to schools and some different marketing materials. So I look forward to continuing collaborating with them on that as the nomination period opens up this upcoming January. But yeah, I'll turn it back over to the youth then.
Yeah, so I think there's lots of YIG components that go beyond just sitting at our committee meetings and stuff. And this is something that I think our class of YIG has really been introduced to. And this is something that when the past YIG were reflecting in May when we first came in was something that definitely was exciting. So I'll talk about job shadowing a bit. So this is something that we learned about after going on our tour. So after visiting each facility, the different departments, a lot of the department heads or even people within the departments were very open to us wanting to learn more. So a lot of them offered for us to come back. I know I have an interest in law and the courthouse, so I spent some of my summer there. But it's really great that a lot of these county employees and people who usually aren't accessible, like a judge, we're open to having a youth shadow them and learn more about them. And that's a really great experience that I think YIG opened up that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah, kind of going along with that, YIG just opened my eyes to government itself. I didn't want to apply to be a part of YIG. Once I got the letter in the mail, I saw it and I was like, this might go in the garbage. My mom kept it though, and I'm happy she did. This is a fun organization. I've met so many great people, and I applied to go up to Madison and tour some senators and do some stuff with actual state government too. And without YIG, I would had no interest in doing that either. So this has really opened the doors for new new hobbies, I guess, for me that I can explore and new ideas about what goes on in my local and state government.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. YIG has been a really great program in my opinion too. Thus far, especially in high school, I felt like I've experienced being a part of a lot of different government-like structures, whether it be clubs in school or like extracurriculars out of school as well. But nothing comes close to YIG and learning about local county government. I think it really changed a lot of my perspectives and gave me and us more of an in-depth look about what government is really like. So I think YIG has been and has done a great job at that.
Yeah, and then the youth will share, their changes that we've just.
Why did you like wanna throw it in the trash? Interested.
I guess I just had no interest. I thought government was kind of boring originally, and you know, there are parts of it that are, but I found it really interesting to watch you guys argue about solar panels and the application of it. Like I was sitting over here and Claire and I were laughing. Or I guess discussing it would be better, but it was just so interesting to find a benign topic that so many people were able to talk about. So I guess I just found it boring, and it's just opened my eyes that there's more to it.
What changed your mind?
My mom wanted me to do it,
Oh,
and
your
she
mom.
talked to me, and then my grandpa was a part of the state assembly, so I kind of thought about it more, and I guess just thinking about it, I was like, let me try this. Let me see what happens. And
Did you have any friends that were in last year?
No.
Any of you?
Oh, no.
I did.
You did, okay, so that's how you.
So
thought it?
that's actually is how I knew about it. And I had two friends who were in it last year, Sona and Patrick. And through them, I've always been interested in government, so I knew it was something I wanted to be a part of. So I actually requested a teacher to nominate me.
Okay.
That way I knew I'd get nominated.
Did you you obviously knew about it, did you know anything about it before you got nominated?
I'd say I had limited knowledge. I know from our school, there were some students, I think, involved in the year before us. But after being suggested, that really like made me want to be a part of this and made me learn more about it too.
Okay, interesting that like no one talked about it
Yeah.
before, and that's something that needs to be worked on in the schools. Someone gets in there and tells the schools that we want the kids to do this. Okay, thank you.
I didn't even know how I got nominated.
I had contact, oh, you mean me go talk to the classes? I did that at my girl's daughter's school one time. Talk all about county government, how exciting. But I mean, so the teachers know about, do your teachers know about it?
Yeah.
No.
The teachers were the.
Okay,
I think it varies by school.
okay.
For example, Harborside, it's mainly teachers who nominate there. Whereas my school, the teachers weren't familiar, it was counselors.
Okay. So I
That's
think
about
the
like we
government
talked about
teachers need to
yesterday.
know about it, and so do the counselors.
And I felt like, and I know it's before you, but I felt like when Erica was here, she was just saying that it was, you know, a lot of it was dependent upon which teachers decided to pick up the application and promote it. And so I think that's one of the big things, the outreach, and even talking about it amongst your fellow students or friends and stuff like that. It's like, you know, hey, this is something that's pretty cool. You guys, you should check it out. You know,
Mhm.
things like that. If you know of friends that you think would be interested in this, then that's another way of doing it too. Word of mouth works a whole lot better than teachers standing up.
Because you guys can nominate people too. Anyone can nominate anyone.
Yeah, I can interject a little bit. This is a discussion we had at one of our meetings, and we do have kind of a plan going into next year to try and increase this. So as Camille said, she made us aware of the issues with nominations. And just to be forthcoming, it was brought up to maybe change this program to be open to all high school students, including freshmen and sophomores. However, we've decided not to make that change quite yet. We just felt like it might be unreasonable for someone to serve for 4 years. We wanted more opportunity, whereas if it's limited to a 1 to 2 year term, we have that. So we're just, obviously Camille's new in this position, so we're looking forward to how she can take over this. But some things that we talked about doing was going out into schools. So she's been speaking with like principals and planning for Harborside and stuff. However, it does run into a little bit of a bigger issue with bigger schools. So for example, Indian Trail, we can't have assemblies like that. So I've let Camille know of the program that we run called ITTV. It's our announcement segments, and she can put a skit or a formal video in that. Then each teacher is required to play that each day. So our goal is that that'll reach our student body at some of the bigger high schools, but then at a Lakeview or Harborside directly going there. But yeah, that's kind of what we discussed. I don't know if you have more to add on what you're planning, but we were just thinking that Camille taking this over, she could work on that outreach more. So we didn't want to make a drastic change like that quite yet.
I'm just thinking that, you know, one of the things that we should be partnering with, you know, yes, we're partnering, talking to the teachers and talking to the counselors and the principals and all that. But I mean, I think we should have something, there should be something on the KUSD and the various school districts, you know, websites. I mean, there should be something there that somebody would be able to say, this is something that we are partnered with, you know, whatever the school districts have. There should be something there that people could see. What are the requirements? What are the, you know, what's the application? What, you know, how does this work? And, you know, that gives some official buy-in, but parents are the ones who are also going to be over here going, what does junior need to be able to, you know, have a good college application and say, look at this.
Yeah, so that's something John and I were actually just talking about. This is a discussion we just briefly got into regarding, it's actually kind of funny because it was regarding college applications. So it would be a change where some of the you feel that it's out of date having a nomination process. So I don't know if that's something that could be discussed in the future, but if it was just ran like college applications, where it would just be on a website then for a student to go forth with applying, where from our perspective, it wouldn't lose much because I know when I applied, I had written a few, I don't want to call them essays, but blurbs. So there's a full application and an interview. So it's only removing that step of the nomination, the application, and the interview. And I feel like through the interview, it can be a good tell of whether someone's a suitable candidate just as well as a recommendation would be. So that's just something to think about. It might make it more accessible to students, because I know it can be intimidating to go up to your teacher and be like, hey, can you nominate me? And it's kind of sometimes a weird power.
But they don't.
You can,
yeah.
I didn't even know how the nomination process worked until I was in YIG. Like I didn't know how I got the letter.
It doesn't have to be a teacher. I've nominated people. A parent can nominate, a pastor at a church, anyone can nominate any kid. It doesn't matter.
But it's a good point of why are we adding that level of responsibility? And teachers are already overworked and they're already having to
The
do college.
nomination process is writing down their name, address, and like phone number. It's like, that's all it is.
All right, it's not a college letter.
Correct.
Application. Okay.
They probably could sit down going through their student roster going, okay, this person's a junior, this person would be good. That's all it is. It's writing. It's.
But then what's the purpose of a nomination?
If that's all it is.
I think so we get a list of names to send out the applications to, because otherwise who would we send the application to? And it's a good chance, okay, so this person wants to, and they want to apply. Well, but we want to be able to give an opportunity to anyone that might not know about it. And this person's nominating someone, then, you know, to get more names in the.
Yeah, so it really seems like we have to do a better job of letting people know who can nominate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marketing.
Yeah, if we can make that more clear, I know Camille showed us some updates to the website, so there's a section specifically for nominations. So if you just want to include that you can nominate yourself, I think that's a very reasonable solution.
I think student government should know about it. I mean, like every school has student government. The student government people should know that there's
Yeah, but we briefly talked about this yesterday on the call. Even scholarships are falling off. Like the teachers aren't telling you that scholarships are available. Because I've been affiliated with, where they're like, we got one application. Well, I guess you got the money. That Patsy must the name came up. The tobacco aware, alcohol, tobacco and other drug awareness brunch. Literally one application, 0 applications for scholarships. So there's something wrong with communications.
That's definitely something that I guess, the YIG should look into for the handbook and, for next meetings, and, we would talk about that for sure in the marketing. But going to what we have done so far is we tried to set a baseline for the language and the actual information that's in the handbook. It was really written in like law format or in government format where it's difficult to understand. And obviously, when you haven't been introduced to that yet and you're applying for that, it's difficult to really fully know, what am I doing when I join YIG, and what am I doing for all these committee meetings? So updating that language and making it easier to understand, summarizing it, adding more details or taking away some details, just making it so that people who are applying know what they're applying to is the first step we took, because then everything else falls into place and it's really easy.
Yeah, that was one of the primary focus, as John said. We spent a lot of time on improving that readability factor. It was like some sort of redundant information in there, making it all more descriptive for the youth, and also making it more aesthetically appealing was a really big thing that we worked on, and I think it looks really neat, in my opinion. So it's a lot easier to understand as well.
Yeah, another big change that we made is we are increasing when we had our meeting, I believe it was 7 youth there, and we voted unanimously to increase the requirement for county board meeting attendance. Currently, YIG representatives must only attend 1 county board meeting through their term. We voted to increase this to at least 5 county board meetings throughout their term. Assuming county board meetings are twice a month, and we serve roughly 12 months with the breaks. Obviously, sometimes meetings are canceled, but it's definitely, from our perspective, not overwhelming the number 5. So we just want to see more engagement that way. Our goals with increasing it is that YIG can learn about things happening throughout the community that aren't actively discussed in their committee, and they can bring that to their peers. And then additionally, just seeing your committee work come to fruition, and seeing the process of it getting passed and stuff like that. So this is something that we're hopeful will help engage YIG better, and will increase attendance because it's required. But
yeah, because we believe such a thing is very critical. We thought this consequence of not being able to attend the meetings would be the same as if you were not available to attend your committee meetings to the requirement. And so the youth would be asked to step down from their position if they did not meet the required 5 county board meetings.
And then just kind of diving back into language and just making it really easy to understand. We updated the questions, like frequently asked questions that were on the handbook. There was maybe 3 on there that were good, and that's a stretch. So we were just trying to make the questions a little bit more specific, update them, make them so that you're getting realistic questions that somebody would actually ask, and helping them understand again what they're getting into, how that all works, and just making sure that it's a summary that is readable.
The next highlight was the removal of the executive committee. And so this was actually suggested by Chairman Uhas. On page 16, you can find that now in the next year, we'll have, instead of 8 committees, 7 committees, because of the executive committee not having like enough meeting days, enough things for the YIG to learn from and get a good understanding of. And then next, we also included a another section in which we talked about mentor requirements. And so this gives mentors a more specific guideline of their duty and better communicates and makes the language more specific about, for YIG, about the role of the mentor in the YIG process. I think there's more bullet points included as well that weren't there previously. And it just gives the youth a better understanding of how to use this resource in their experience.
So similarly, we are changing some of the advice and tips. So on page 17, you'll see it, it's currently blank. Just since we have not fulfilled our terms yet, we will give our advice towards the end of that to upcoming members. Previously, it was just some like outdated 13 tips from youth and leadership positions. And it wasn't very applicable to the situation. So this is just so future YIG members can hear from us and our experiences. So we're hoping it'll be more beneficial if they're nervous coming into this program.
And we're also going to try and dive into like our service project and what that whole process was. And since we haven't finished that yet, it's difficult to give tips. But I know almost every single youth and governance person that I talked to early on had no idea about what the service project was, what the process for that was, what we're even supposed to accomplish with it. So just giving them the direction on what to expect and what you're kind of trying to do, not giving too many restrictions, because that struggle of learning what you want to help your community or how you want to help your community is necessary for the service project, but helping them a little bit with that direction and knowing what should happen is another thing that we wanted to bring up.
Yeah, that concludes the updates that we had highlighted to discuss, but we'd take any questions or feedback from you guys.
Okay, so I've been on this committee since, well, I was off for 2 years, but since 2011. When I started on the committee, there was no bus tour, or there was a bus tour, but it wasn't mandatory. When I started, this committee made it mandatory. Then several years later, there was no mandatory Maine County Board meeting attendance. We made it 1. And I think 5 is too many. How many county board meetings have you attended?
2. So
How many of you? 2. And I know you're like at every one.
Yeah.
Almost. So this, and I talked to Supervisor Geertsen, and he's not here right now, but he said, and he was around when YIG was started. And he said the intention of YIG was to get kids, high school youth, to be able to come and see what county government is, but not be so burdensome that kids can't do it because they have so many other commitments. And I've always kept that in mind when making changes to it. Like having, I mean, it was a big deal to add 1 county board meeting to it because we actually, and the mandatory bus tour, that actually, we saw the numbers drop off because kids couldn't attend those. And so we don't want to make it so burdensome for those kids that are really, really busy, that are in lots of sports or lots of other activities. So I have an issue with increasing it to 5 county board meetings because I don't think that's necessary to be a requirement, because the youth know that they can come to any county board meeting. But I don't believe we should require them to come to more than 1. It's just so the main thing is the committees, because I actually was reading in the minutes of one of the meetings about, or maybe it wasn't here, that originally they were talking, I think it wasn't here. They were talking about having the kids come to full county board meetings, but it was decided to have you guys come to the committee meetings because there's more discussion and things like that in the committee meetings than the full county board meetings. So it would be more engaging for you to be to committee meetings. And the reason why we have them mandate them to come to 1 county board meeting is just so they can see this, that they saw the start of the process in committee, and then they got to see it actually voted on at the county board floor. It wasn't to make them come to a meeting was just so they could see the completion of a process. So that's one of the issues. Another thing in here, I don't understand why there's a service project in here. Is that something new? Cause that.
Yeah. So
I don't think we should mandate that either.
it's not.
And I don't know. I know how kids are, that they feel pressured into doing things when adults or other kids are around. And I think that kids, if you say there's a service project, some kids will go and not want to, but still go because of your pressure. And that's not the point of youth and governance. The point of youth and governance is to teach the kids about local county government. It's not about service projects, because there's plenty of other places you guys can do service projects in, you know, in your government school, wherever. That's not the point of what youth and governance was set up.
If you don't mind, I'd like to just touch on both those topics. I'll just go with the service project since it was most recent. And this is something that is new this year. It's something that the Racine YIG had done. So Camille brought it up as if we were interested. I personally am not participating in the service project just because of my schedule. I chose not to, because I am in a lot of different service organizations. From my understanding, it's optional and it's working with the Shalom Center this year, but I was a part of the discussion when they were planning it. It was just that some youth and governance members felt like they had seen problems in the community that they just kind of wanted to talk about. So we had a process where I believe 3 people submitted ideas for the service project. And it was optional, and some of them were like Narcan training in high school, because that's something that the county had been focused on, a beach cleanup. So I don't think the intent was them to be large, but I, as someone who's not participating in the service project, I would like to see maybe wording change so it's very clear that it's optional, as maybe just something for a youth to participate in. I'm not sure anyone else's feelings on that, because I think I am the only youth not participating. But
and I also think that if kids see it in the handbook and they're on the fence about being on it, they're like, I don't have time to do a service project. That might make them, even though it says optional, it might make them not sign up for it because it's just, you know, I can't do that and I don't want to sign up for something that I can't do. So
If I may add, actually Erica had done a service project with you, so it had come before the committee before. And it was not added, and so I don't know, because that happened right as I came on board, so I'm not sure where that came from or if there had been a conversation beforehand. So maybe, yeah, Erin, perhaps do you remember? Because I know they did invasive species and they did like one cleanup, I should shut that, and then one other one. So there was a little bit of past. And so I don't know if the former PDIP committee suggested it for, I think Erica came and asked and they said, okay, I don't know as much. I just know it happened.
Nothing that I recall. I mean,
Okay.
If it was not a main.
Yeah, it was, okay.
During the feedback session, this actually came up with a youth who had been serving for 2 years. So while Erica was the educator, and he shared that YIG didn't complete the service project, from what I understand, for various reasons. So I don't know how it's been approached in the past before, but that's what I understood from that conversation. And then I would also like to just address your point. I think the youth who don't have the availability to participate don't feel pressured to join and haven't been attending the meetings. And I have that included in the attendance sheet. And I think that's fine because this is an optional project. I'm also trying to make it very flexible so you can join in when they have availability. This was just the initial part. I'm going to discuss it with the youth, but I'm hoping to have committees, so that would make the work breakdown easier. So then they would only organize amongst committees and do certain tasks to have the service project. But I found that the youth were looking for chances to connect outside of YIG, and this was a good way to do it and a good way to get connected to the community outside of committee meetings. And they've been pretty eager about proposing ideas and seeing it come to fruition. There was actually 4 proposals, and we had an initial partnership meeting with the Shalom Center, and it went really well. So we're thinking of doing the youth for one youth, Charlotte. She proposed this idea yeah, so she's actually like sending out dates and our band app as a form of communication. We're using the band app, using polls. So I think you can see who's engaging, and youth are engaging at different points for the service project, and those who don't have the time commitment don't feel pressured. I sent out a poll at the beginning of the year as well, saying like, how many meetings would you like to attend? I was hoping to support them coming into their gig role by doing skills building meetings and yeah, just gauging their interest. And some youth straight up said like, no, I can only do one. I'm involved in a lot of extracurriculars. So I think just, yeah, communicating that clearly has been productive for this year as far as I can tell.
I just really quickly, briefly wanted to add, if we looked at that portion, I don't know exactly where it is in the handbook, but we spent a lot of time tinkering with the language as well. So I don't think the language makes it sound really sort of like it's mandatory to.
No, it says it's optional.
It says it's optional,
Yeah.
but like, it's one of the 3 things that's in your brochure that says who can apply, monthly committee meetings, service, gig bus tour. I mean, that right there says that is, well, it says we're encouraged to collectively plan, well, but it's in your requirements there. I mean, and so that looks like a requirement.
Right.
So-
That was just something I recently did. I found that the service project has been a real connecting point for keeping youth engaged. So that's why I put it on there, but I'm happy to change it back to like the county board meeting. I thought, why include like one county board meeting requirement when I could have an inclusion for youth to really design and lead and propose and discuss amongst each other. So that was my thinking. I didn't really pass to youth if I should include that on the brochure, but
Oh, I mean, when it says youth must commit to the following program requirements, it makes it sound much more mandatory than it seems to be. And, I think there are a lot of opportunities, but there's also, for people to be doing all sorts of things. If they want, any particular year cohort of gig want to meet 27 times a month and, do all sorts of service projects. That's wonderful. But I think we need to be careful what we are requiring from year to year because we don't know who our cohort is. Okay, definitely.
Well, I was on YAR years ago as an adult board member, and I literally saw one of the girls, you could tell she was this close to a nervous breakdown because she was staying up till 2, 3 in the morning with all her AP classes, plus her sports, plus YAR, plus all these other service projects she had to do with church and stuff. And I don't want kids to be like that, where they are so stressed out and so busy that they just, it's not good for them. And I saw that with this girl, and I worried about her. And thankfully, the next term, she didn't join YAR again because she couldn't handle it. And I don't want our kids, that is not the purpose of youth and governance. The purpose of youth and governance is to teach you guys about county government. And it's not to make you busy and assign extra work to you guys that are busy enough and doing other things. It's just so you learn about county government.
So good discussion, and I think, right off the bat, I just want to commend you for being here, going through the handbook, coming up with these ideas and having this discussion back and forth. I really think that experience and for you guys being here, I commend you right off the bat for doing that. So it's all just trying to align flexible program. I think you just want to make sure that there's flexibility within the program. The opportunity is big, but the requirement is achievable by many people. So I think that's what the intent is, what I'm hearing. So.
I'd like to just go back to our decision to increase it to 5 county board meetings real quick. So the reason we came to the number 5, because we originally were at 3, so an increase from 1 to 3, which I still understand you may not agree with, but the reason we went to 5 was just because the introduction meeting and the closing out both count as a county board meeting as currently standing. So when we came, you recognized us, we got our certificate, that counted as one. And then when we do it, when the new youth come in May, like the outgoing youth did, that also counts as another currently. So that's why we just felt like if we increased it to 3, then you're still kind of only at that 1. So that is why we chose to go up to 5, just because we felt like 3 then, because those are both already required things that you're at the introduction and then the ceremonial, I guess, introduction for the new youth, if you know what I'm saying. So that's why we decided to increase it to 3. And I understand your points about stress load and stuff very well as a high school student. I'm in many things, many AP classes, and I understand that. But from my perspective, the 3 meetings, I mean, the last county board meeting I was at lasted 14 minutes. So I think it's very reasonable for someone to look at the agenda ahead of time to know if it's a meeting they could fit into their schedule or not. And also knowing that meetings often fall over winter break, breaks like that, and especially over summer break. We are members over summer. So if someone's worried about their workload with AP classes, it'd probably be smart for them to get those meetings out of the way in the summer. So those are just kind of the feedback I gave at our meeting with why I thought that that could be increased. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know. I just kind of see it. I do enjoy attending the meetings, and I definitely attend quite a few of them. So I just see it as that with a lot of the organizations I'm in, they are heavy requirement wise, and I just think that is part of it. But I know that's kind of hard to say with the amount of applications we already have, and that's not something I want to see decrease more. But I just think that if you're going to put this on your resume, especially with it being tied into the UW school system, I do think it should have some weight to it. So that's why I feel like it makes sense to have some of these things as requirements.
And just adding in here, we did also talk about trying to make it more easily accessible to find the agenda schedule and to find when the upcoming meetings are going to be so that kids can see that, because it has been briefly talked about, and obviously we know it's all online, but that's all we're really ever told is, yeah, it's online. You can find it.
Your mentor then.
And so we're trying to, as is to just make it easier to see when the meetings, when the actual county board meetings are and all of that. So we are increasing the requirement, but we're also gonna make it easier to understand when those meetings are, how long they're gonna last. And like Claire was talking about, if you need 3 extra meetings, because that's really what it is, the 5 number is a little deceiving. It's 3 extra meetings outside of your 2 mandatory ones. You can go all 3 in June, July, August, or you can figure out maybe June and July. I know I personally attended one over the summer because I didn't have anything going on. And I also want to add in that for the service project, I have not been very active within it. I said I'd help support it, but I haven't felt that I needed to attend every meeting or needed to help out in every way. So although we have all of these opportunities and everything that youth can be a part of, it doesn't seem very stressful to me that, oh, I'm thinking about youth and governance every day and really trying to plan out my week based around youth and governance. It's more when I have time, and then also the mandatory things that I did start to focus on. So if that helps ease your concerns on the stress levels.
Can I just say something real quick? I also find that having a lot of extension opportunities benefits the youth, because right now there's a 60% attendance rate, and due to short meeting agendas, or maybe they're just sick or have a conflicting curricular, I think this demonstrates that they are interested in being participating in other ways that should be recognized. So we actually have 5 youth under the 60% attendance requirement, so they would be asked to step down, but we don't have any alternates, and I don't want to ask them to step down. So, yeah, that's that. But yeah,
It's a different story if we have more kids, and we actually have alternates. I mean, it is, because, and that was the thing, when I was a mentor, my kids wouldn't show up, and it was frustrating because I knew there were other kids that did not get selected. And these kids were taking their spots and weren't showing up to the meetings. And that's what I told your predecessor previous to Erica, that they weren't showing up, and we kicked them out and got new kids in there, because if they're not going to take advantage of the program, and it's not like they aren't told numerous times before they sign up that attendance is taken. So I understand now that you don't have the kids to replace that, but it's a different story when we were interviewing 25 kids and all of them wanted it and we only picked 14. So, but to your point about the mandatory meetings, when we approved an additional meeting, it wasn't the first and the last meetings. Those didn't count. It was, they had to attend one of those meetings. So I don't know who said that the first and the last one count, because they don't. So they actually do have to attend 3 meetings. But the first meeting, they're so new that you guys don't have that. Yeah, you're excited. Your parents are there. You don't even know what's really going on. And then the last one, sometimes people, they don't show up to either way. And you can't count on that as being your only one meeting if you're not showing up. And at that point, it really doesn't matter because it's last meeting anyway. So it wasn't just one of those 2, it was those 2 plus 1. That was the intention. So I don't know how that got changed, that either of those counted.
Erin, would you feel comfortable with it being 3 regular meetings? So we're actually meeting the same issue that.
Well, what I would say is that the first one's mandatory, the last one's mandatory, and they have to attend 1 additional. Because that's what it is. That's what it should be.
Except I'll say, if you've got somebody who's in a sport and let's say they have, track, they made it in track and they're going to state or conference or, something. And it happens to be on that Tuesday in May when we're having the ceremony, I don't want to make somebody choose between,
I agree with you.
There are extenuating circumstances.
Okay.
And there was even one this year, right? That they couldn't make the.
Yeah, they were like
cheaper
in Europe or
because
something.
they're in Spain or something like that, right?
Yes.
So like, you came to us, you're like, is it possible?
We expect them to come to the first and to the last, but if they can't, that's not the end of the world. Right. But
they need to
we need to be at 1 more. So that's
So that's not changing anything then, correct? Just so I'm understanding.
Well,
Because if they're expected, not required, then it's still the 1 requirement, right?
not the first or the last.
Right.
Right.
But that's how it's written in, is 1 county board.
So
But you're saying the first one counts as their county board meeting.
I
That's
suppose-
not the way it
Yeah.
should be.
So Erin, my question remains, would you feel comfortable if, to go with what they wanted, if we said 3 regular
They're saying-
meetings, not the first, not the last, 3?
No, I think 5 meetings is still too many, because they're saying the first, the last, and 3.
I know, but we're also saying sometimes people don't make it to the first.
Right, if it's just 3 in general.
If it's 3 in general, are you comfortable with that?
As long as it includes the first and the last.
Mhm.
See, that's why I'm saying,
That's
our
right.
interpretation, when we made it 1, it wasn't the first or the last, it was 1 throughout the entire time. So.
Okay, so that's just as a point of clarification.
But it needs
While
to be
they-
clarified.
No,
in
I
there.
know, I'm going there.
Mhm.
If, point of clarification, if it's the YIG handbook and the YIG kids are saying, this is what we want, this is what we think is appropriate, and in a sense, it's self-governing. Yes, we are overseeing, and we're kind of, sometimes we're, holding the reins, going, whoa back, you're getting too excited about things. But if this is what they're saying, then can we go ahead and say, all right, they're saying that they want 3 meetings that are regular meetings that are not where they're getting introduced and where they're not getting the certificate, because we're kind of expecting they're going to show up when they're excited, and we never know what's going to happen towards the end of the school year. And so at the end of the program, so we want them to go to 3. That's what they're saying they think that they should do. So where is the authority and where is the governance and self-governance if this is what, it's their handbook and they're coming up with, this is what we think is appropriate?
It's not their handbook.
Okay,
It's not self-governance. We're the committee that oversees it and we approve it.
right,
And they're a temporary group that is here 1 term. That they should not be speaking for the future terms just because we have a group of 14 this time. That's why we as a committee have to think about this over more than one term. We're looking in the future for 10 years from now to make sure this is a successful program 10 years from now.
How often do you update the handbook?
Not often.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember updating it, probably 2 or 3 times in the, 9 years I was on the board,
Yeah, I think
on this committee.
substantial changes like these don't happen regularly, but like annual dates and everything get updated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Again,
I would say the only other time it's been updated, and I wouldn't even call it quite updated, but it was proofread last.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, I'm saying
Yeah, but
changes
true
made.
changes, yeah,
Yes.
so there was that reading, but you're right, like true changes probably not very often, and even that it was right, I think it's just because County Executive Kirkman also wanted to look at it and whatnot, so, and that's.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not sure it even would have happened then.
And usually when changes were made in committee, it was because we encountered a situation that, like, for example, I can remember one of the committee members on this committee, their daughter was applying for it. So we had to say that you'll see in there, you can't interview if your child is applying and the child cannot sit on a committee that you are on, or if you work for it, for the county.
Yep.
I remember those. So it was pretty much static until we came upon an issue. And I did notice in here, cause I recall this, but not real clear, we did have a change about closed session meetings.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why it was different. And you came in here and said that you talked to Cardamone. And when we discussed it, if I remember correctly, we didn't realize it was in the ordinance that they can attend. I pulled up the ordinance, and so we made a change, which obviously conflicted with the ordinance, so it needs to be corrected with the ordinance or the resolution. And that wording in here, I have a question about because it's not clear in here versus the ordinance. But I remember that also because there was an issue with a closed session where we were like, no, we don't want the kids in there because it was a sensitive issue. And so that was why it was brought up. And we made that change, which unfortunately was incorrect based on the ordinance. So.
So back to the multiple board meetings. You said 7 youth attended and 7, no, I'm sorry, I was understanding.
Claire said that, but 11 youth were actually a part of that meeting, so 11 out of 16 were there.
And all approved the change.
Yeah, and you can see that in the attendance sheet too, like that's what you can see those names everywhere. Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, maybe 5's too many or 3 total is too many. I guess I wouldn't see a problem changing it to 2, 3, a range, I don't care. Especially when they're saying, you know, we should be attending more. They're saying it, and I get what you're saying, that we're not trying to put more burden on them, we just want them to see it through. John, go ahead.
I also think we could make it so that attendance is only brought up if you do need to be kicked out. We could put a clause in there that's talking about as long as you're showing you want to be involved and as long as you're proving that your involvement is there. You know, if you've attended every single one of your committee meetings but have only made it to one of the 3 county board meetings, there could be a discussion there like this person is involved, they just can't make it to the county board meetings. So that would ease kind of everybody's nerves where it is taking the less stress off of that. It would be a little bit more up to interpretation then, which is an issue, but that would help that aspect where we start to weigh things and bring in attendance overall and attendance to the program and the need for that.
But, okay, so I'm reading this. And we don't, 11, 10. 10 on the copy that I printed, this page. It only says that we're taking attendance at the committee meetings in the 3rd bullet point. We don't even really take attendance and say that they are gonna get kicked out if they don't attend the county board meeting. So it's,
I don't know the point.
Yeah, it's not like it's do or die. The important thing is that they're attending the committee meetings, in which that's what we've always said on this committee, is that the committee is important and the board meeting is just to see it through. And that's like the bus tour. That is such a great tour. You learn so much on it. That's why we make it mandatory, because you can put faces to names and, oh, this department does this. You just learn so much that bus tour really helps you know about county government instead of just sitting in your committee meeting and just learning about legislative or just learning about PDAC or whatever. So I don't think the attendance is really, it's not counted at the full county board meeting, so it's not a detriment. We do not have to go to see it through.
Also for reference, the issue you were talking about with closed session is on page 11. So, you know,
Right.
I know because you wanted to change it. I know it's not written right, but just, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I actually printed out, because in here it says youth and governance members are permitted to attend closed session portions of any committee meetings. It's not actually, I gotta find it. Because there's a caveat. It says, because there was an amendment to this. It says it was moved by Supervisor Midori to amend the resolution with add a fifth paragraph, which is, whereas if the situation is warranted, the committee may vote to exclude student members. Also, so it says, to amend it, that says, now therefore be it resolved that the Kenosha County Board of Supervisors will allow YIG members to attend closed session of the county committee, subject to the majority vote of the committee. So you got to put that wording in, because you need to let them know that they might be voted out of the meeting, especially if it's, you know, personnel related and stuff like that. So.
Could you share that with Camille? Because we found one resolution that may be what she's working on off of, and then sent it to Joe. And so I'm wondering.
Well, this is the resolution that she, because I used what she has referenced.
Okay.
I'm like, oh,
I'm just like, in case she.
So this is the resolution that she referenced. So maybe Joe didn't catch the amendment or something. I don't know. But yeah, I can do that. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's Amanda Sorensen sent me the resolution. And Pam let me know about it.
Well, mine wasn't that long. I can tell you that already. It was much shorter, the one copy
Well,
that
this
I had.
is the minutes from it.
Oh, that's
So
from like
when it got approved, so I looked up the minutes, so.
Okay.
That's helpful.
Yes, it is.
There's some typos that I wanna, you guys gotta correct. You gotta correct the kerning on the pages too. It makes it really hard to read when you're spacing between your letters so far apart. What was it?
I went after the font changes. I'll just give you my thing that has all my little love notes about typos and,
You also have the youth and governance mentors written down for next term. When chair of this committee gets to choose the mentors. And that's after the points, that's after, she recommends to the chairperson of the board who the chairperson should appoint.
finally someone power.
That's because, I'll tell you why. You know more than Camille, the supervisor. Who is good with kids and who would you not stick with a kid?
So much to say, so.
Yeah. And personally, I wouldn't appoint a brand new supervisor who's never been on a county board before as a mentor. That person's learning already themselves.
Yes, Chairman Uhas appointed the.
No, that's not how it works. She appoints the members. She picks the committee or the mentors.
I did not have that clarification in May, but I just want to say that for this term, the mentors were chosen by Chairman.
Yes, well, that's not how it works.
And I just left them in there as placeholders.
Yeah, so
for formatting.
So she gets to sit down and go, okay, who would be best for this committee? Who works good with kids? Who does not?
Who has the time?
Yeah, who has the time? That's another thing.
Yeah.
Who wants to? Because there's some supervisors that don't want to. I can name those people in the past too.
Well, and the other thing that I would say is, I was tapped, I was asked to be the mentor and with zero instruction. So, I mean, but
There should have been a meeting.
there might have been, but maybe I couldn't make it or something like that. That happens. So
Right.
should be on me to find out more about it, but yeah. Just the importance. If mentors aren't mentoring, then they can be kicked off.
Well,
Big place too.
Well, if that's the chair can see that mentor is not working and the next term of kids get a better mentor, because that's half the, when you have a kid saying they don't know where to find the meeting agendas, I mean, that's online. Yeah. Our website is only like 1 million pages, literally.
Don't worry, we get them sent to us like 42 times.
Oh, well, they're not posted.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not.
So
Posted that Friday.
I think we need to go, like, send Mila the corrections that we have. Our
Okay, so I want to go back one last time
Okay.
to those number of meetings.
Oh, like two.
Yeah.
So are we all in agreement that the first and the last are
Part of
No.
like
They
shit?
don't know, yes.
But
Those, they're required unless you,
Right,
unless there's extenuating circumstances.
right. That's assumed. When you're
I would
getting,
say-
when you're getting sworn in. If you want, you say, they must attend this meeting and this meeting. Graces, there will be grace for sickness or other important reasons, but they must.
Unless
attend-
excused.
Yes, unless, there you go,
Unless excused,
unless
just like
excused.
us.
And then, in addition to those 2 meetings, they must attend 1 more regular county board meeting. So then they have to attend 3.
At minimum, but it is
Yes.
strongly encouraged that you attend as many as you can in order to have a better understanding of how things come through committee to fruition at the county board.
That wording's in there.
Just like
Works well.
they're invited to attend any committee meeting that they want. They don't have to just attend.
They're assigned. to.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like we are encouraged and to attend other committees. We have to attend the ones that we are assigned to. But you will see all of us showing up at various other committees in order to listen to particular debate or discussion on various agenda items. And I think that understanding of, kind of putting the responsibility instead of it being a checklist of thou shalls, you shall be at this meeting, you shall do this, you shall do this. If you are having the interest and the inclination to join YIG, then, in a sense, I want to treat the YIG members who are juniors and seniors, more like I would treat a colleague here and say, this is why we think it's important. And part of this is the orientation, and it can be written in so that it's written form. We encourage you, this is the bare minimum, but we encourage people to do this for this reason. Get to know some of the other people. Ask those of us on this committee, what other committees are you on? Can I sit and talk to you about those committees? Can I show up at that one and talk about something? That in a sense is treating the YIG members more like adults, and helping you understand the governmental system in a way that our handbook of, taking attendance does not.
And on the opposite end, you're talking about kids that really enjoy it. I think there's some kids that come in and are like, ugh, this is really boring. This is not what I expected it to be. These meetings are boring. And they are just going because they committed themselves and they're gonna come to the minimum. And that's okay too, because they found out they didn't like it. Not everyone thinks it's loads of fun. There some meetings when you have
some meetings we don't think are loads of fun.
Exactly, especially the ones that go into 11 in the morning, 11 at night, or the county board meeting that lasted till 2 in the morning. That's not fun. But
details.
I wouldn't expect one of the youth to stay till 2 in the morning to a county board meeting.
Supervisor Carroll, were you gonna say something?
I think that Camille had questions early on when you first came in here, and, you know, I remember you asking some stuff, and then I'm like, I really don't know either. But I think that that's important, you know, is to be less excused, and I think that we assigned who it's excused by, which is probably the PDAC chair, right? Is that,
Or Camille, because she's the one that really you're the one that's really in contact with them before they get.
but you even brought it forward to us and said, hey, what do you guys think? Because I'm getting this request to this person that can't attend the bus tour.
Okay.
You brought it to the committee or to
The committee.
me at the time? I think. it was
Oh, the bus tour is a big deal,
Right.
because that is like a big.
Well, but I also, I guess I like the language of unless excused.
But I want to say by,
By PDEC committee, or
Or the chair,
the chair,
or Camille.
Or I would say by the,
I would just say unless excused, because then if Camille is,
if she's on vacation.
or if she's not comfortable with, you know, I'm not sure, she can contact you or the whole committee if you think it's important enough that the whole
yeah,
committee.
because I also wouldn't want the next person, like this expectation for particularly the bus tour. Knowing somebody applying, knowing full well, I'm not going, there's no way I'm going, I'm gonna come up with a reason to be excused. And we're not, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
being in Spain is one thing. I've got baseball that night is another thing. And so I guess I want us to be really clear I want the person to be really clear about that. I want whoever's excusing them to be really clear about that. And that it still is mandatory in that, you know, unless excused, but the excuse has to be a good one. I mean, don't put that in there.
I think when we put the bus tour in, that kids saw that and a lot of them knew that they couldn't attend, so they did not apply because they knew they couldn't attend that. So.
Yeah, I think on the application, it says do not apply if you.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's a point of understanding for everyone. In the end, the committee does approve the handbook. So
Right.
as Chairwoman Brown keeps asking, like, we need, like, what's a number? What do we feel comfortable with? They do have to decide that.
Mhm.
And so, or Supervisor Decker mentioned about the service project, either it's gonna be in there or it's not. So there will have to be some wordsmithing and some decisions made by the committee. They'll definitely take under advisement all the recommendations or suggestions, I should say, you've made, and then make that decision, because it does continue year after year.
Guess I'd just like to ask is realistically, is the attendance requirements really the only big issue with this handbook? Just so we know what to focus on for our next upcoming meetings on maybe looking at what we could talk about and revising this.
I think the attendance and the service project, any other big issues, I don't.
And so we'll clarify the closed session.
Yes,
So we
yeah,
need to
well,
make sure, yeah,
that we're
that's.
matching up with the ordinance. Yep.
Content wise,
The resolution.
I think that's all I have.
It
I've got
looks so much better than the previous version, done in Word, I'm sure. It's really nice looking.
It was Canva, that's probably why they.
No, the previous version, not this one.
I think that's why they.
I told you it was Canva.
Yeah, you did.
So one of the things with Canva is
Yeah.
the way that it does the spacing thing,
Okay.
and you know, that's why the spacing looks
The kerning.
fun, yes, the kerning looks funky, which, you know, yeah.
by the only one that doesn't know what Canva is.
Oh, you got it. It's a free online design, kind of layout application. Yeah,
Okay.
but you
All right.
basic version is too free.
Yeah. It's,
All right,
It's online.
Okay.
so you guys are gonna wordsmith this more. We're gonna give you our notes on typos and kerning. And
Readability is important.
I know, I agree. We will tell you, I said, do you want me to proofread this for you? Or do you just want me to look at it?
I can't tell you
Proofread. I can't either. I can't, I'm sorry.
That's
It's
all
terrible.
over.
So, yeah. And I'm sure that my proofreading marks and their proofreading marks are gonna be conflicting. And you're gonna be.
Sorry, you've got the former professor here going, yeah, this is from Wikipedia. It seems like a lot of copy and paste.
So sorry about that, but you know,
You have a graphic
Yeah.
designer here, so I look at every
you
layout.
have a journalist here.
So, so you're gonna have a really good handle by the time we are done picking this thing apart. But
No,
if
I'm
the
not.
content is good, we'll just, yes, and improve. Consider this first draft and we
Very good first draft.
and a very good first draft, and we're here to help you make a better second draft.
Cause you gotta think this is gonna be, like we said, it's only
This is your
tweaked,
legacy.
it's only tweaked 3 or 4 times in, 16 years, so. This is something that's gonna go on for many, many years.
Almost like it's your service project.
Yeah.
There you go. He's like, check that.
Check.
One of the interesting things too is that and I know you can get there, but I just did the QR code and it works good. But I usually go to the agenda center and it doesn't take you to the agenda center. Is that?
I go to the agenda center all the time.
I think the
You also,
you guys know best.
where you have the QR code, you also don't have the website typed,
Yeah.
which
You need.
if you don't have an iPhone, it doesn't necessarily mean you can go use a QR code because you need a special app, which.
Not everybody.
Thank you.
I think that's
Scary.
Yeah.
I think that's great. But
Frederick's afraid.
the agenda center is
It's the best place to go. That's where I know.
Yes.
Where does it link to?
It goes to the county board committees.
Oh, yeah.
That was like-
The agenda center is way better.
Does that include like meeting time and location and everything?
The agenda center?
Yeah.
It's on the agenda.
Okay.
So
Yes.
every agenda has to say where, what time, what date on the top of it, so. In the agenda center, you click and it says full county board meeting, or all the committees are listed, and then you click the little arrow and it gives you the dates of all the meetings. Past and future that, are in the near future. It's great.
That's good. Yeah, if you can find it, it is great.
It's on the whole page.
No, I know.
It says agenda center.
But have you ever I've done
So
a
here's
lot
what I
of
do.
where's the last
If I'm on
one?
a device that I don't have it already linked to, all I have to do is type in Kenosha County agenda
Agenda.
and then boom,
Yeah.
the search engine finds it and you're like right there.
Yeah.
Or I go kenoshacounty.org and it's like halfway down, it says agenda center
Yeah.
on the home page.
That's it.
Everybody.
Now you guys are there.
All right.
No, that's important stuff. 'cause it's how you
Getting
find
my love
information.
notes.
Yes.
Yes. So to me, whenever I'm like, oh, wait, what do I gotta do? When is this meeting? And I'm like, I always go to the agenda center and make sure that my meetings are lined up with the agenda center.
Right.
Curiosity question, if I may. You had mentioned, that you get the agenda, sounds like perhaps even more than once. Could it be that all the representatives get just the agenda, like they get added to that list? Because I can see where you don't want to send them all the.
We get it, email.
They should
Get it,
be,
You do already, so really then they do know when every single
So
board
we
meeting
get,
is. Okay.
every Friday, we get a document that tells us the next week's meeting.
Oh, okay.
In one document, it's a PDF.
Nice, okay.
So they should be getting that too, and then whatever committees are on, they will
Then they
get
get-
from
Yeah.
the secretary. Plus,
Yeah.
the Friday before,
Uh-huh.
they should be getting another notification of that
April
specific
7th.
meeting.
Yeah, April.
Okay, so they are getting, they would
should
know
be.
theoretically when all the board meetings
Yeah,
are.
and they
They wanted
can
to-
look at that agenda, the weekly agenda,
Okay.
and see, it has every committee, even like when you guys meet for.
Here's what it looks like for this one. It's got, for Monday, and then here's the link
Yes.
to it, and then
And it's-
Tuesday.
Every agenda item is listed on that sheet except for the county board agenda.
So
Okay.
Wednesday looks like a really short meeting
Yes.
for this meeting that we're in.
Right,
Looks
and-
like a really short meeting. And then we started talking.
Well, I will say, and then if anybody changes anything, then you get another email. Then if
Right.
anybody
Yeah.
changes anything, then you get another email.
Yeah.
And so seriously, I mean, I'm like delete until the very last, like to the day before, I'm like, oh, I'll go back and find that one and then click on that because it's a lot of emails.
Yeah, I go to the agenda center.
Yeah,
Yes, they always correct it. So I know the latest version should be in the agenda center.
Yeah. It did.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone want to,
To approve.
No, no, no.
To move to adjourn. I think-
Wait, is there something else on the?
I-
We have,
That's the southern thing on my computer.
I had a couple things about interviews. It's typically the third and fourth week of March. So I wasn't sure which PDAC members would be interested, and I didn't know, both Jennifer and Kenzie are both, juniors currently, so eligible to reapply. So then, are you interested in serving again? Because last year we had. No pressure, but last year we had two PDAC youth who reapplied and their scores didn't count towards the next cohort because they were part of the interview process, like real thing. So if that's the case again, I would like to suggest maybe inviting other.
Yes, that's typically what we did.
Okay.
Or if we, in the past, when I was on the committee, we had 3 committee members and then 2 youth interviewing. And typically it would be you and Mackenzie, but if you can't make it, or you're gonna apply, then usually your position knew a good person, or you would ask the rest of them, say, hey, would anyone like to interview? But it has to be the same people for both days. So, and I would be happy to do the interviews.
That's good to know. Yeah, what dates would work best for you, in March? Should I just coordinate individually, like your email?
Yeah, that's fine. Usually it's, I think, on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, which that works for me.
Yeah.
So I think historically it was Supervisor Franco and Supervisor.
Yes.
Ashram?
Yes.
Yes, I think. But, and the reason why I wasn't able to participate is because that falls within spring break time, so I was usually doing spring break. So that was why I wasn't able to participate.
I think Beardson would be interested also.
And yeah, I'll also include you and Mackenzie on those email communications. Just also as a side note, Juniper was a significant contributor to the handbook edits as well. I know she didn't say as much, but just wanted
You were
to.
fine though.
Taking all in.
It's like I'm staying out of the line of fire.
She's watching us taking notes over here. She's like, dang. I don't know.
They prepared to speak and I didn't let them.
Oh,
I didn't have time to prepare anything, but.
you don't need to prepare. It's just us.
Funny, thought I prepared.
Yeah.
You seem prepared.
He just put a jacket and a tie on.
I was gonna say, confidence is the best part.
There you go.
One thing that I found is it's easy to talk about stuff that you know as well. So
Yeah.
you guys know it, you live it, and you've been working on it.
Also, as I mentioned earlier, 5 youth are currently like around the 50% threshold. So yeah, I was wondering, one youth in particular, I haven't received any communication from, but the other youth have been staying in contact with me, engaging in other ways. I don't know what's going on with the one youth. Her mentor's been in contact with me about it as well, so. Yeah.
If she isn't like responding to emails, I would.
Fine.
Yeah, even though we don't have a replacement, just.
Okay.
Because it's not fair to the other people.
Right.
For her to continue to be a part and to receive the notice and be able to put it on the resume and whatever. If you're not, if she's not participating in anything, I mean, if there's other extenuating circumstances and there's communication, I'm all about the communication. Give me the explanation. We'll talk about commitment. We'll talk about all the things. But you gotta communicate.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm waiting on April or Pam, did you want to say something about what you handed out?
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you wanted me to do that now, or I thought during either extension education reports, because I know you wanted to,
Okay.
if that to be part of it, or number 10. So it's up to you when you would like me to just quickly.
No,
Pam, go ahead and do your thing now.
Oh,
Certainly.
so
Yeah, we're.
very quickly, I did send an email today about the partnership of, not agreement, I keep using that word, guidance. And so it has been updated, the county partnership guidance. I just wanted you to have a hard copy as well as that electronic copy. Overall, not a whole lot has changed. And I just very much appreciate your input because that was a big part about that from the presentation I had given. So there's that. I also wanted you to see the enrollment guide that Carolyn had put together, just to see how comprehensive it is. And it just is really nice because it lets you see all the 4-H clubs that are available, all the projects that are available. And just wanted you to have that general information. And then the Raising Wisconsin's Children, there is a conference coming up. You may know someone who would be interested in attending that. It's open to parents, grandparents, caregivers. So just wanted to have that information, and please, I encourage you to share it with anyone who also may be interested. Also want you to know the financial security position was posted. It closed on November 15th. It was extended to December 1st because of just not enough applicants. We now have some really good applicants, and we are extending preliminary interview invitations for next week, Wednesday. So we're really excited about that. And hopefully by January, I'll be able to share with you an individual's name. We will have final interviews after the holidays. It's just too rushed. We'll let candidates know that there'll be a larger gap than usual between prelims and finals because of the holidays. I'm sure most people understand and appreciate it. And that, and then finally, the 136 contract has been finalized and signed by the county exec, but I wanted you all to know since you have shared that information with you before. And I thank you very much for your continued support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have me for extension education reports on the agenda.
Yep, so I just wanted to make sure for every agenda that we're reading the reports and that if we have any questions, not that Pam will necessarily be here to answer them, but that they'll come up so that we're not just like, okay, check, we did that. So yesterday we did actually talk about the having to repost.
Okay.
I just want you to know that we're reading them. And I just want to make sure that that stays on the agenda so that if anyone has questions, it's sort of a trigger to say, oh, yeah, I have questions. Instead of, yeah, I got the report.
Right. And you can reach out with your questions to me or to any of the educators for detail. That's that.
Next item is approval of minutes from November 13th.
Motion to approve. Second. Motion in a second. Any discussion? Everyone else?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries unanimously.
Any citizen comments?
Oh, yeah, citizen comments. Now,
You're also
Seeing none. And then chairman, committee members, supervisors, seeing staff comments. Andy usually announces whether we have items.
We have items from January. Don't recall.
3 of them, 2 applicants.
Yeah.
One is minor material, the other one is at 2 for Beaman, a rezone, kind of CSM, I think it is.
Material may or may not go depending if they make it to the town. For their 2-year.
Quick clarification, is the executive committee okay to not include our materials for this upcoming year term then?
Yeah, okay.
Cause I know
We
she
should give the chairwoman said she's not gonna have it,
anyone else?
When's the, just double checking dates in January here, just to that, is it January 8th?
Second Wednesday.
So New Year's Day is a Wednesday.
Yeah.
The second one would be the 8th. Yep.
I'll be at.
Wow.
Yeah, January 8th, yeah.
Okay. Frederick and Aaron Carroll will be here.
But I'll respond to your email that you sent out anyway, but I'm just letting you know that.
I think I had a note or available.
Julia, I think there was something you wanted to say.
Move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?